What if you spent $2 million to protect the only family you have left, but discovered she was living in a homeless shelter wearing donated clothes? This is the shocking story of betrayal, stolen dreams, and a grandfather who refused to let fate win. Back-end index pointing right. Before we begin, hit subscribe, like the video, and turn on the bell icon, because stories like this deserve to be heard. For 73-year-old Malcolm Sterling, life had always been about numbers, power, and control. Empires obeyed him. Markets moved when he spoke. Yet, when it came to his granddaughter Nia, he believed love alone was enough. 18 years ago, after tragedy tore their family apart, he entrusted her to her step-aunt, a woman who promised warmth, safety, and stability. And Malcolm, desperate to give Nia the best life, did what he thought any responsible guardian would do. Every single month, without fail, $10,000 quietly left his account. 18 years. No delays. No questions. Just faith. He would tell himself, asterisk, she must be safe, she must be happy. That money must be keeping her comfortable. Asterisk, and for years he never doubted it. Until the day a quiet worry whispered louder than usual, and he hired a private investigator, just to be sure. A week later, instead of reassurance, came silence. Then tension, then fear. The investigator didn't speak when he finally walked into Malcolm's office. He didn't need to. He simply placed the photographs on the polished mahogany desk, one by one. Nia, not in a warm home, not in comfort, not living the life he had promised himself she had. Instead, a soup kitchen line, a thin, worn coat wrapped around shrinking shoulders, a narrow shelter cot, clothes that were never bought, only donated. The room felt colder than winter. The world that Malcolm Sterling controlled so effortlessly suddenly shattered into something he could not command, truth. Shock punched the breath from his lungs. Disbelief burned, and then guilt wrapped itself around his heart like chains. 18 years. 18 years of trust. 18 years of believing she was safe while she was surviving. Malcolm didn't wait for drivers, didn't wait for escorts, didn't wait for the world that always waited for him. The billionaire whose footsteps usually echoed through marble halls now stumbled through cracked pavements, racing toward a place he never imagined his granddaughter would live, a homeless shelter. When he pushed open the faded metal door, the smell of soup, cleaning chemicals, and tired lives greeted him. Conversations hushed. Volunteers exchanged glances. A few residents whispered. Billionaires didn't belong in places like this. But Malcolm wasn't a billionaire in that moment. He was just a grandfather, a terrified one. And then he saw her, Nia, sitting at a cafeteria table, shoulders curled inward, fingers wrapped around a chipped mug like it was the only warmth she owned. Her face was older than her years. Etched with exhaustion, life had no right to give a girl her age. Her eyes, they didn't shine. They survived. Malcolm's heart broke in silence before a sound ever left his lips. He remembered a baby. He remembered promises. He remembered love. But the girl in front of him carried something else. He walked forward slowly, afraid he might scare her, afraid he might shatter completely if he didn't. Nia, his voice cracked, the word trembling as if it had been waiting 18 years to escape. She looked up, confused, curious, then guarded. "Can I help you?" she asked softly. Polite, cautious, like someone who had learned the world rarely approached with kindness. He swallowed, pain swelling in his chest. I'm your grandfather, Malcolm Sterling." For a heartbeat, she just stared. Then something inside her hardened. She stood, not with joy, not with relief, but with disbelief laced in anger. "No," she whispered. "No, my grandfather left me. He didn't want me. He never tried. He never cared." The words hit him harder than any blow ever could. Abandoned, rejected, forgotten. That was who she believed he was. His hands shook. His voice broke. Who told you that?" "My step-aunt. She said you washed your hands of me after my parents died. Said you didn't want the burden." Nia laughed bitterly, a sound that didn't belong to a young girl, but to someone who had cried too much and trusted too little. "And now, suddenly you appear years later? For what?" Pity. Malcolm felt decades of power, money, and pride crumble into dust. This wasn't just neglect, this was betrayal woven over years. And it wasn't Nia's fault. She was the victim of a lie he had blindly funded. He took a breath, steadying the storm tearing through him. Nia, I sent money. Every month. $10,000. For 18 years. That's over $2 million. Silence fell. Even the shelter seemed to stop breathing. Her eyes widened, not with greed, not with excitement, but with pure, raw hurt. $2 million, she whispered, her voice barely existing. He nodded, tears finally spilling. For you, for your life, for your school, your safety, your happiness. I thought you were safe. I thought you were cared for. I thought. His sentence broke apart. Her face changed. Confusion. Shock. Then something far more painful. A realization that could tear a soul open. Then why do I have nothing? Her voice broke on the last word. Why did she sleep on cold floors? Why did she wear donated clothes? Why did she wonder every night why God forgot her? When she had never been forgotten at all. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't cry softly. She cried like every hidden wound finally found air. Like 18 years of maybe I deserve this shattered into I never did. The room blurred as Malcolm moved forward, slowly, respectfully, like a man begging forgiveness without knowing if he deserved it. He wrapped his arms around her, gently, desperately, and for the first time in 18 years, a broken family found each other. I am so sorry, he whispered into her hair. I trusted the wrong person. I should have checked. I should have been there. I should have held you, not just funded a lie. She didn't push him away. She didn't fully trust him either. But she let herself be held, because for the first time, someone who should have been hers finally was. A volunteer quietly wiped a tear. A man in the corner bowed his head. The shelter wasn't silent anymore. It was heavy with a grief that wasn't theirs, yet somehow everyone felt. Malcolm gently pulled back, looking into her tear-soaked eyes. His voice didn't tremble anymore. It carried something else now, fire. Whoever took your childhood, whoever stole your comfort, your dignity, your future, they didn't just steal money. They stole you. And I promise you, Nia, his jaw tightened, his heart steady with purpose. They will pay for what they did. I will make sure of it. Her lip trembled, pain still trembling inside her chest. But there was something else now. Hope. Small. Fragile. But alive. Because for the first time, she wasn't abandoned. She wasn't forgotten. She wasn't alone. The world outside the shelter didn't look different. Cars still honked. People still hurried. City lights still glowed against the dusk. But for Nia, every second felt unreal, like she had stepped out of a nightmare and walked into a story she didn't trust yet. Malcolm's car wasn't just a car. It was comfort on wheels. Soft leather. Gentle warmth. Silence that wasn't cold. He kept glancing at her, wanting to say 1,000 apologies again, but understanding that right now, the most loving thing he could give was quiet and presence. When the elevator doors opened to the penthouse, it felt like another universe. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls. A skyline that looked like it belonged to another life. Soft golden lighting. Art that probably cost more than everything she had seen in the shelter combined. But Nia didn't gasp. She didn't rush forward. She didn't smile. She froze. Her shoes hesitated on a marble floor like she might dirty it just by existing. Her fingers hovered near the back of the couch but didn't touch. Even breathing here felt like trespassing. This can't be for me, she whispered, eyes wide but dimmed by years of being told she didn't deserve anything beautiful. Malcolm noticed. He saw the hesitation, the careful distance, the way she kept her arms close to her body like someone used to making herself smaller. Not noticeable, not inconvenient. He stepped beside her, voice soft, almost fragile. You don't have to earn being here, Nia. This is your home. The word home trembled between them. She had never really had that word. He led her gently room to room. A bedroom filled with soft blankets. Clean clothes folded in drawers by staff who didn't even know how desperately they'd be needed. A balcony overlooking the city, like life itself was finally opening up in front of her. But she didn't run to explore. She touched things the way children touch museum glass. Carefully, as if alarms might go off. Malcolm tried to smile, tried to make light conversation, but emotion sat in his throat like stone. He wished he could rewind time. He wished he could take her childhood and hand it back wrapped in gold ribbon. Later that evening, after dinner she barely believed was allowed to be hers, they sat in the living room. The city outside glittered, but inside it was quiet warmth. A fireplace crackled softly. A cozy calm settled in. For a long time, neither spoke. They just existed together for the first time, not as strangers, not as myths in each other's lives, but as family learning how to breathe around each other. Finally, it was Nia who broke the silence. "My step-aunt," she began, voice steady but slow, like she was learning how to give words to wounds that never had space to speak. "She told me you wanted nothing to do with me, that I reminded you too much of my parents, that I was inconvenient." Her jaw tightened. "Every birthday, every holiday, every hard night, I thought of you. I used to imagine maybe one day you would come. Maybe you would show up. Maybe I matter to someone out there. But every year, she told me the same thing. Asterisk, he knew where you were. If he wanted you, he would have come. Asterisk, she wasn't crying. That somehow hurt more. Tears meant release. It sounded like scars." Malcolm closed his eyes as if stabbed. His voice broke before the words did. "I didn't come because I trusted her. Because I convinced myself that paying meant caring. Because I thought providing meant protecting." He looked at her with tear-filled regret. "But I was a coward too, Nia. Losing your parents shattered me. I couldn't face the memories without feeling like I failed them. So I hid behind bank transfers and phone calls instead of being a grandfather who knocked on doors." She turned slowly toward him. Not angry, just haunted. "So all this time, the life I dreamed of wasn't impossible. It was stolen." He nodded painfully. "Stolen from both of us." Silence wrapped around them, but it wasn't hostile. It was heavy with truths finally spoken. Heavy with years slowly unraveling. He leaned slightly closer, careful, respectful. "What else did she tell you?" Nia swallowed. "That love always comes with conditions. That family only helps when it benefits them. That people leave, so don't depend on anyone. Don't hope for too much. Don't trust too deeply. Don't expect kindness to last." Her voice trembled now. "So, when life got harder, I didn't ask for help. I didn't reach out. Because I believed I wasn't supposed to." Malcolm looked at her with the kind of heartbreak only regret can carve into a soul. He reached out slowly and rested his hand over hers. She stiffened at first. Years of flinching before connection doesn't disappear in minutes, but she didn't pull away. "I can't change what you went through," he whispered. "I can't heal 18 years in one night. But I can promise you something I should have promised years ago. You will never fight alone again. Not a single day, not a single moment." Something cracked softly inside her, not breaking, opening. Her shoulders dropped. Her breathing softened. Exhaustion, safety, relief, they all collided. And for the first time, she let herself lean into him. Not fully, not fearlessly, but enough to let him know she wanted to try. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. A simple embrace. Gentle, steady, no rush, no pressure, just love. The kind she had been starved of, the kind he had been aching to give. For a while they just sat like that, a grandfather and granddaughter rediscovering each other. The city outside buzzed with life, but inside, something much more precious was happening. Healing wasn't loud. It was quiet warmth, shared tears, deep breaths. Later, under the soft glow of the living room lights, she whispered, "Do you really think I belong here?" He turned, eyes wet but shining. "You don't belong here because it's a penthouse. You belong because this is your life, Nia. You belong because you were always meant to be loved, always meant to be safe, always meant to be home." A small smile, hesitant, fragile, touched her lips. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe him. And somewhere in that quiet night, trust didn't rebuild entirely, but it began. Not with grand gestures, not with luxury, but with honesty, with warmth, with two broken hearts finally choosing to heal together. Part 4. The Investigation. Lies shatter. Anger, justice, rising empowerment. The next morning, the house didn't wake with luxury. It woke with purpose. Malcolm Sterling, the man who once believed writing checks made problems disappear, now understood something he wished he never had to. Money hadn't protected his granddaughter. It had armed her predator. He didn't call assistance. He didn't pass this to lawyers. He called the only thing powerful enough to strip lies bare, truth backed by evidence. Within hours, forensic accountants, private investigators, and legal experts sat in his office. And Malcolm, with his age-worn hands steady with new fire, spoke with a cold, controlled fury nobody in that room had ever seen. "Find everything," he said quietly. "And don't stop until there is nothing left hidden." What came back didn't just hurt. It burned. The paper trail unfolded like a crime novel written with arrogance. Bank transfers, offshore accounts, luxury spending listed with pride like trophies of theft. The numbers weren't just numbers. They were stolen birthdays, stolen safety, stolen childhood. Every receipt felt like a bruise across Nia's life. It started 18 years ago, the moment the first $10,000 hit the step-aunt Key's account. The lies began to bloom like poison. What she told the world was caretaking. What she really did was build an empire of greed with a child's stolen future. The first shocking entry appeared on the screen. A $2.3 million mansion. A sprawling estate with white columns, imported marble floors, a swimming pool sparkling under sunlight, while Nia slept on thin mattresses and shelter beds. There were aerial photos, real estate listings proudly boasting a dream home. Malcolm stared at them, jaw set, eyes burning. This wasn't a dream home. This was a shrine to cruelty, funded by innocence. Then came the cars. Not one, not two. Luxury on wheels lined like trophies of theft. A sleek black sports car. A pearl white SUV. Another imported car purchased just because she wanted a newer model. Each document read like a confession. Each photo felt like mockery. Then school files surfaced. Not Nia's. Key's own children attended one of the most elite private academies in the country. Perfect uniforms. Expensive extracurriculars. Overseas cultural tours. Every opportunity, bought with money that was meant for the girl she neglected. And the vacations. Oh, the vacations were endless. 5-star resorts in Paris, Dubai, Greece. Smiling photos. Sunlit laughter. Perfect family portraits on breathtaking beaches, while Nia learned how to endure hunger. While she learned how to stay quiet. While she learned invisibility. Designer clothing purchases appeared next. Brand after brand. Wardrobes worth fortunes. Jewelry. Luxury handbags. Personal spa memberships. A beauty routine funded by a child who never got to feel beautiful. One accountant whispered under his breath, "This is monstrous." Malcolm didn't respond. His silence itself felt dangerous. This wasn't grief anymore. This wasn't confusion or helpless guilt. This was righteous anger, the kind that didn't roar, it focused. Meanwhile, investigators gathered statements. Neighbors described Key as wealthy, powerful, generous in society circles. A woman admired, respected, envied. The world believed she was a loving guardian blessed by fortune. No one questioned. Why would they? She smiled beautifully. She acted kind. She played the part perfectly. But behind castle walls, truth rotted. Nia had not lived in that mansion. She had not touched those polished floors. She had not sat at fancy dining tables or slept under expensive chandeliers. She had lived separately, pushed aside, hidden like an inconvenience. Isolated, unwanted, fed lies instead of meals, given silence instead of love. While Key's children thrived, Nia learned survival. While Key's children posed in family photos, Nia learned to disappear. While Key's children were tucked into warm beds, Nia learned how to sleep through cold nights. And while Key enjoyed a designer life, Nia learned to never expect kindness from anyone. The realization didn't break Malcolm this time. It hardened him. He stared at the evidence, and instead of tears, a storm built behind his eyes. For years, he had carried guilt. Now he carried something sharper. Purpose. He stood slowly, and the entire room quieted. "This wasn't theft," he said, voice steady as stone. "This was life stolen. This was identity stolen. This was 18 years of love stolen." One lawyer cleared his throat carefully. We can press charges: fraud, embezzlement, custodial abuse, civil and criminal. She won't stand against this evidence. But Malcolm wasn't just thinking legally. He was thinking morally, emotionally, humanly. Don't just build a case, he said. Build the truth. Let the world see what she did. Let every mask she wore crack. While the team moved, Malcolm walked out to the balcony. The city stretched endlessly, but his thoughts were only with one person. The girl sleeping in the next room, finally warm, finally safe, finally home. She had no idea yet just how deep the betrayal ran. And he knew when she learned, it would reopen wounds they had only just begun to close. But hiding truth would be another form of abandonment, and he refused to fail her again. That evening, Nia sat curled on the couch wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the city lights like they might disappear if she blinked too long. She looked calmer, but she still held herself carefully, like someone not used to being gentle with her own existence. Malcolm sat beside her, slow, mindful. He didn't rush. He didn't force. He simply said, softly, "We found out where the money went." Her fingers tightened slightly around the blanket, but she didn't flinch. She just nodded, bracing herself. "Tell me." So he did, not in cold numbers, not like a businessman, but like a grandfather who loved her enough to face the ugliest truth with her. With every revelation, her expression shifted. Not shocked. She had lived too much disappointment to be shocked. But hurt layered on hurt. Anger rising through sorrow. Betrayal, finally recognized for what it truly was. So, she swallowed hard, voice trembling, while I was wondering if I mattered, she was living like a queen with money meant to keep me alive? Yes. And everyone thought she was wonderful? Yes. And no one questioned why I disappeared. Malcolm's voice cracked. No. For the first time since she arrived, fire burned in her eyes. Not fear. Not sadness. Strength. She didn't just steal money. She stole me. He nodded, and something like pride, fierce, protective pride, filled his chest. And we're going to take you back. Not just legally. Not just financially. Your dignity. Your voice. Your future. Her jaw steadied. She nodded slowly. Not a child seeking rescue. A survivor ready to stand. In that moment, power shifted. Not the billionaire's power. Her power. Because now she wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't helpless. She wasn't someone tragedy happened to. She was someone truth now stood beside. And Malcolm, he wasn't just a grieving grandfather anymore. He was a shield. A storm. A man who had spent a lifetime fighting business battles. Now preparing to fight the most important war of his life. The war to reclaim what was stolen from a girl he loved. The investigation wasn't just paperwork now. It was justice waking up. And for the first time, the lies that once silenced rooms were about to shatter loud enough for the world to hear. The courtroom lights were harsh, cold, and unforgiving. Just the way justice should feel when the truth finally stands naked before the world. Key Sterling, once a figure of admiration and envy, now sat under the weight of her lies, the walls of her carefully constructed life collapsing around her. Every fraudulent account, every stolen dollar, every empty promise was laid bare. Nia watched quietly from the gallery, the girl who had once believed she was invisible, discarded, unwanted. And yet, here she was, not powerless, not voiceless, but standing beside her grandfather, the man who had never stopped believing she deserved better. Criminal charges were prepared. Fraud, embezzlement, custodial neglect. The papers weren't just legal documents. They were a symbolic exorcism of 18 years of betrayal. Each signature, each seal, each declaration was a step toward reclaiming a life that had been stolen from her. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the tension around Nia began to melt. She allowed herself to breathe deeper, to smile a little, to feel that warmth, the one she had always longed for, without suspicion or fear. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, she felt safe. Back at the penthouse, the city outside no longer seemed so alien. The walls that had once felt like a gilded cage now felt like a sanctuary. Malcolm watched her settle in, a young woman discovering the privileges she had been denied, exploring them carefully, reclaiming them as rightfully hers. He didn't rush her. He didn't push. He simply stood nearby, always present, always ready. Nia enrolled in the school she had dreamed about, surrounded herself with books, pursued interests she had once thought impossible. Dreams she had buried beneath years of survival, and doubt began to bloom again. Each small achievement, a finished essay, a science experiment, a painting hung on her wall, became a quiet victory, a stitch in the tapestry of a life finally being restored. And through it all, Malcolm never spoke much about his own pain, his own guilt, or the wealth he had lost through deceit. His focus was entirely on her. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, he knelt beside her bed and whispered, gently, unwaveringly, "You will never be alone again." Those words, simple, unadorned, yet monumental, sank deep into Nia's heart. They were more than promises. They were the foundation of trust rebuilt, of love reclaimed, of life renewed. The shadows of the past had not vanished entirely, but the light of justice, dignity, and family now illuminated her path. Nia had not only survived, she had been restored. She had been seen. She had been loved. And in the quiet, tender moments that followed, she finally understood the power of truth, the strength of resilience, and the unwavering bond of a grandfather who would stop at nothing to protect her. A chapter had ended. Another, brighter, freer, full of hope, had begun. And for Nia, for Malcolm, and for everyone who had quietly held their breath through years of unseen suffering, this was more than relief. This was triumph. This was life reclaimed. Sometimes life steals the childhood someone deserved, but destiny always finds a way to return what was taken. Nia didn't need revenge. She needed truth, love, and a grandfather brave enough to fight for her. Because real family isn't the one that speaks the loudest, it's the one that shows up when the world disappears.